Thank you. All right, back to our finance committee meeting. Item number 6 is discussion of possible action regarding a legal firm to assist with the resolution of historical payroll issues for both employees and elected officials. We have proposals from Taft and from Business Tax Resolution. The board has had an opportunity to talk to both of those firms in executive session. Is there any discussion in open session that we want to have around the proposals from either one of these two firms?
No, I'd like to make a motion to retain Taft or
There'll be an upper limit. Of 50,000 as part of that contract. So
Do we need a roll call? Hold on this.
$1,000 plus a small fee. What was the extra $650 for?
Was it $650 to file the form with the state?
That's what the controllers report. Okay, thanks. Any discussion around the proposal from
I've worked with them before and they've been pretty flawless on the village board.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Do we want to make a recommendation to the board to approve?
I will make a recommendation to the board to approve the accounting firm. Sikich is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
To provide the township with its annual audit.
A second.
Roll call vote, Supervisor Hewitt,
Yes.
Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Trustee Page, I'm a yes. Trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Geist.
Yes.
And Operations Manager Wolf.
Yes. All right, thank you. All right. And the reason they were in the finance committee meeting, that we actually did discuss them in the last board meeting, and we were asked to carry them forward to discuss in the finance committee meeting. So thank you for your patience as we went through that for the finance committee dealing with that. The real purpose of what we wanted to get to tonight was to talk about the annual budget. We need to have a budget that is discussed and approved. Excuse me, but in the full board meeting, which is scheduled for next Tuesday night. I just want to set the framework. You have documents that have been shared. Let me just set the time frame and make an apology to everyone. So on Friday, the 12th, accountant Nader shared with me the actuals from the prior year. And I think there's still a few issues on but that's the actual expenses that we work with for setting the budget. It was my oversight in this communication that on Monday, at the budget approved for 22-23. That's the second column. And then I added some inflation numbers to a lot of the budget lines, which utilities and things like that. On Monday, the 15th, I met with Supervisor Hewitt and Operations Manager Wolf to review what we put together. And we came up with a revised budget, which is what was proud to meet our commitment to the board to have a document, update information from the assessor's office. It was included in the revised budget, which was just uploaded this afternoon. I also got personnel information from accountant Nader today that I worked in. And then I also got guidance that we had to 0 to 10-1011, 10-1013, as those are already included in the levy. And then I went through the budget and I put together sort of budget talking points. I get lost in each budget line, so I put together some notes around what this looks like from a budget point of view.
This is
So
what we.
that's where we are now, and I just want, thank you, Accountant Nader, something you wanted to add? Okay. Notes, just the our total township G&A funding for the year is going to be approximately 2.703550. That's based on the levy, some other township funding, G&A levy funding, and some other G&A funding, mainly interest on the funds that we have. The draft budget that is shared and in the website calls for a total township expenditure and township and G&A expenses of 3.858917. So significantly over what our income is going to be for the year. I broke it down further by compensation and salaries for the assessors, personnel, elected officials, and the township office personnel. That included in a section on employee benefits, FICA, IMRF, and insurance. Looked at the cost for the township facilities and office expenses, the assessor office lease, office supplies, technology, telephone, capital improvements and maintenance and utilities. And that effectively gets us pretty well to what our total township funding is for the year. That's those three budget categories alone are close to 2.7 million.
And that's not providing any service.
Right.
Yeah.
What's on top of that is what also has been asked for is a $516,000 approximately administrative and support services for accounting services, HR, legal, NIU study, which we owe for training and travel. Communications, 105,000, which is newsletters, planned newsletters, and the website enhancements. Community service, approximately 56,000, which is a lot of the food pantry, the trucks, and the gas and the maintenance and other services that provided. G&A services are budgeted for 280,932 for food, gas, rent, utility, and other assistance. Include the new vans that we have are for the PACE transit software and the transit van expenses, payments to PACE for other services. And that does not include the salaries for those for the drivers. That's in the budget for compensation and salaries. So if the budget goes forward like this, the draft will the township reserve fund will be $1 million. We'll have to $1,227,435. I think I have the most current one here. And G&A reserve fund would require 172,932, which actually exceeds the amount that's in the fund. So just want to share that information with the board and talk about what we think we should be funding and how we should be running the township. And we can go through it. I want to go through the high level to give you a framework as to what we're talking about. We go through a budget line discussion, and then the question comes up: what's an appropriate level of spending at the township level in G&A? What are we prepared to put forward in a budget? Any thoughts?
That's a lot of money to be over $1 million.
Yeah.
And
We tend to be under about $1 million in, meaning in 2021, we were under $930,000. And the part of these estimates understood that they were making sure, for example, when we looked at mosquito abatement, that we were in case of worse, in case we did need to spray, for example. So some of these were one-time only costs. Some of these were also adding a buffer, so we wouldn't be amending this again. I don't remember seeing the cost of the NIU study. How much was that?
41,000.
Oh, we haven't paid for it. Is we budgeted last year for it, but it wasn't done.
You know what rent assistance was for fiscal year 22?
We have it in
In the packet, isn't it? 20,
22. Fiscal year 22, 21, 22, then,
okay, no, I don't have that number. Do you know this?
I don't.
Count Nader, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there was a question as to what the rent assistance was for the fiscal year prior to this, like it's 21, 22, fiscal year ending in 22. Do you happen to have that number?
We have it in the packets, so if it's in the last packet, I would make this April 12 packet in staff reports. And the total was 213,000. 213,000.
The rent assistance
Oh, sorry, for rent assistance, it was 150,000.
for fiscal year 22?
It was for fiscal year, well, 22, 23.
No, for fiscal year 22, 21,
Let
22.
me get that one.
The elder assistance in the annual report was 64,000.
So part of what happened in 21 through 2 was that we had a lot of COVID state subsidies and federal subsidies that ended. And part of it was also in 2022, that's when I personally changed the amount of general assistance.
Have the other townships reverted back?
No, they're increasing. Naperville Township did it first. The other townships are all talking about the levels that they're looking to increase.
They all stayed at the 1,500?
Sorry, they didn't all, we were at a supervisor's lunch yesterday and they were all talking about their understanding that, for example, when the WIC or when the SNAP benefits were cut, then especially in the last 3 months, we've been looking at the amount of assistance that have been given because of the
But
drastic.
all the others except perhaps Naperville cut them back.
Again, they were all, at least the supervisors yesterday were discussing the increases in GA. We didn't specifically say what.
But they did not keep the 1,500.
Naperville Township did.
And their, you know what their level was for the year? How much they spent?
They have about, they have a significantly smaller population than we do. they have, currently they had about 30 precincts less than we did.
Well, I looked at the statements that they submitted, and they weren't audited for this year, fiscal year 23, and it was $38,000.
They probably have significantly less multifamily. Mhm. Between Foley Brook and Ridge. Isn't all like at 40%. 38%.
I just think that compared to the other townships, very.
Well, I think lots of areas are. I don't know that.
And here's how we came about number that we were at was that around here, when you can only get rental assistance once a year. If it wasn't able to cover the entire month's rent, then what would happen is that you couldn't get the assistance that you say your rent was $1,000. And I didn't know anywhere under in this town, but if you were to receive rent and you couldn't pay the amount, then you couldn't get the receiving of the rent, meaning that we would only give you a check if the entire amount was covered. So like, say we were giving you $750, say your rent was 1,000, you had to get the 250 as well. In order for us to even give you the 700, yes.
Like, it's not like, we just pay it and then, the next month they may be out, right? And the challenge with the timeline of how it works too, is that it takes so long to get that difference together, that by that time now they've accrued late fees, possible eviction attorney fees, so.
We won't pay the whole rent.
And they have to get it, like they have to go to other
could.
agencies.
If it was. Then here's the thing is, Autumn is, trustee Geist is correct in that we can't, we give it directly to the rentor or to the lease, to the leaser.
Landlord.
And landlord, and to make sure that it's going directly there, but we have to make sure that the entire thing would be covered in order to even get that $750 if it was $1,000.
Yeah, so like if their rent was $2,000, we're not covering the whole rent, like they have to come up with it. Different.
I've always been very perplexed by this, because we will pay 1 month's worth of rent one time in 12 months. Is that
Yes.
correct? So
And
what happens the next month?
they have to figure that out.
And when we look at the audit of expenditures, it's the same payee every time.
They're not, there's two different types of assistance. One is general assistance, and that's when there is the same pay. That's a different qualification. The state creates the qualifications for those. An emergency assistance is where it's one time in, once a year. And so we only give that if they have an eviction notice. They don't get help if they're not at the point of eviction.
Good discussion.
And they also cannot get help if they have over an amount of money that is rather low.
So that's one. Thank you. Good discussion around rent assistance. You're suggesting that potentially that number could be lower if we change the
I
strategy.
just think we're out of line with the other townships, that I think so.
From the, how much we're giving or how the frequency?
I think it's the amount of check.
Well, the challenge is, I don't know what the rent, do we know what the average rent is in Lisle? I have no idea. I'm sure Debbie knows.
Debbie knows.
I mean,
What's the
there's
least?
really very little rental available. That's part of our issue, but, to get something, like, if you want a single family home, you're paying almost 2,000 or above, but if you're doing, not just but a multifamily, you're not getting anything for less than, what,
I can
1,200?
get that because I
Yeah.
who are getting in the store today.
Right, you can-
It's
At
a
least it was like 1,100 like years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, I mean, I just put one, it's on in Four Lakes, I just put one in Walnut Creek, that's 1,300.
Oh, that's good to know.
One
I
bed.
had someone in the store today whose
Yeah.
daughter was moving here from Kansas, new job and can't find anything
They're
affordable.
not plentiful, but like I said, I just put one up for 1,300, one bedroom, one bath. Nice, no, no garage, but a nice place to live.
Okay. So 1,300, if we give 750, it's have to come up with the other 600, right?
I understand all that. All I'm just saying is, the other townships don't give as much as. we do. And that's up to you. I have to bring that up.
Which townships did you say?
Why do they go? Because they're-
All right, so that's one budget line. I didn't finish going through the memo. Some of the things on the third page are, the discussions I had with the supervisor, the operations manager were around what some of the increases in some of these funds were, or some of these requests were. So I tried to itemize those, and you see those. So there was a discussion of a part-time maintenance person, which was 40,000. Plan to incorporate solar capabilities was 170,000. Maybe some of those things can be deferred. Planning for administration, we have the outstanding NIU study. Trustee Geist, to answer your question. Discussion about outsourcing payroll and accounting services, a number that was proposed was around 15,000 a month. I think we do have to have a discussion on how we're going to manage accounting and payroll, and then HR consulting services as well. So that's what makes up that number that's in the budget line. And then the legal line for the supervisor, anticipated payments for prior year attorney billing, including our current attorney plus potentially the prior attorney, this request for ongoing employment, tax services, and then potentially ongoing township attorney services. And you notice that that number is significantly less than what we have been paying for the attorney. They're not here tonight. We had that discussion, so we're trying to find a way to more effectively utilize our services and members of our board and not be as dependent on that. So those are what proposed, and then things which actually didn't get in the budget, but just because of timing, were some other things that the supervisor, the operations manager, suggested as new programs. You can see a homelessness program with supplies in them. Township Garden initiating that next year, refrigerated truck potentially, and more community outreach events. So, we're the finance committee, effectively, we're the board too. What numbers are we comfortable going back to? And where do we think, if we're going to ask the township and the supervisor and the operations manager, and the assessor as well, anyone whose budget you're talking about here, what impact, where would we like them to make adjustments, or where would we like to propose adjustments?
I do have a question, what is the anticipated payment for the prior year attorney billing of 24,000?
I think we have approximately half of that is to our current attorney, and then there's still the open question as to whether the attorney prior to that attorney will look for compensation.
We're not paid up with our current attorney? This is for, it's
Previous.
a prior year,
This is, yeah, it was,
so it's gonna be this such a.
No, it's when the last, in the last. We didn't pay the last, we held it, so that didn't get paid.
But that should be on, oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's this
That
year
should
now.
just be on her total budget. And that's not something special, right?
It's added to this last, it's added to this next year, essentially, because it was partly from March that we didn't pay that bill.
We didn't get the bill until afterwards, seeing what you're gonna do last year, so it's this year's budget.
It'll be paid in this year, we're cash basis, so.
Okay,
But
that should go into her annual, because it'll,
potentially, I mean, I put a budget, I think we discussed a budget of 7,500 a month for attorney's fees.
What's the anticipated cost savings of the solar capabilities initiatives?
From a return on our investment currently, and the reason why we're even thinking about this from the perspective of an investment is because this year and with federal rebates of getting solar. So of all the different years that we're thinking about doing it, this year has a whole lot of financial benefits to doing it. And so getting the ability to make that decision would be, generally, they're talking about return on your investments of 10 years.
When will those benefits run out? Those subsidies, so to speak.
I think I need to check in. They usually are like first come, first serve until they run out of cash. Then they end. But
And so there's no guarantee if we make the spend anyway, that we would even get the rebate.
I think that they're pretty sure, everything I've heard is that the solar has the ability to last this year. I haven't heard anything about next year going strong.
Do the rebates come with solar, or do you have to be at net zero level,
No, they just come with
just solar?
just buying the solar. You get rebates.
The replacement of failing exterior windows, what is the story with the windows?
There was a water issue. They weren't sealed properly. A number of the employees issue windows, they're not all of them, but a number of them are literally rotting out. So
Are these wood windows?
they are wood windows. And so like if a number of them have literally crumbled after they've been opened, so you can't open about half the windows in the offices.
So this is just to replace the windows that are failing.
Only the windows that are failing.
How many windows is that for 75,000?
Literally half the windows. Like almost all of the back end of the offices have failing windows.
So 10 windows, 15 windows,
We estimated 8.
that's really high for 8 windows.
It was an estimate. So again, we were hoping to making sure that we had enough. I think that it could be done much cheaper, but I wanted to make sure that we had enough for retrofitting those windows. And they're literally so bad that they're crumbling.
Need to focus on some of our administration fees, the 180,000 for outsourced payroll and accounting.
What is the outsourced payroll?
Yeah.
What portion of the 180 is outsourced payroll?
So we've gotten several different quotes. We're still getting a quote from Paylocity. There's several modern companies like Paychex and Paylocity. A lot of people have heard of ADP. That doesn't sound like it's the right company for us. After shopping around, Paychex gave us a quote of having them have it cost $500 per running a check. So that would be totaling $13,000. The amount of amazing, pretty helpful HR help that comes with it is pretty expensive. It was in the that we gave all the information, but trustee Robinson and I listened to another presentation from them. There's Paylocity, that is a very, I'd say, common company that's been working with other townships to have a long history of doing it well, of creating an easy online user-friendly ability for the employees, where they would be able to see a lot of pieces of their benefits and what have you not on just by going online. One of our employees had it on her phone for another job and was very excited about how easy it was to get her W-2s and everything just immediately.
I can see the complete benefit of that and the ease of it, but it's $180,000.
No.
That's
see,
not that.
Well, it's combined. But wouldn't an accountant do that service with?
No,
In-house?
what we're doing.
So from a liability, here's what's happened is we've obviously had a lot of payroll issues. In the
Oh, wait,
last
hold.
decade.
Just
Several
pause 1
decades.
second. What have we been doing? It's been 2 years. Yes. Yesterday. The first 2 years, how was our payroll being managed?
with QuickBooks.
In QuickBooks, okay. And so what happened in that time that made that no longer a viable solution? We had changeover, so we had, and we had with change order, that lack of retention as a cost, right? System that have made it not reliable, but if we send someone for training in QuickBooks who's on staff that we're already paying a salary for. So we're gonna now take another responsibility off of the team and increase cost, which is gonna lead to a whole other expense. Whereas if we just train someone in-house to use QuickBooks properly, which is probably, my guess, well under $1,000. Now we've got somebody who's already being paid, who's on staff to use the system, and we don't even have to look.
Piece that we're missing is that for the last several, we're tonight solving an issue that was created by generations of not doing payroll properly.
Because they
Meaning
weren't
that-
trained properly. In QuickBooks, but if you have somebody properly trained
in QuickBooks, meaning that the amount of years of doing this wrong, whether it was the improper IMRFs, whether it was a variety of other pieces.
What were the other pieces? I mean, I'm aware of one, the RML and the salaries, but what else happened?
I don't think that should be, that's not an ongoing problem,
Right.
once it's solved.
I mean, the
Yeah.
IRMF problem was back
Was.
at the beginning when we went on QuickBooks.
Mhm. So we've had ongoing, and so this is where we've had an ongoing payroll issue that we're currently trying to solve, make sure that we're properly getting all the
But once that's
information. I think here's the thing is that we got into the position, this whole position, because we had what we've been told was an improper way, training of the person prior. We tried to do it with the way for generations, it seems, in a way that allowed for a whole lot of liability of us. The insurance company wrote us today and made sure that we understood we were denied for our claim of having them cover the payroll issue. And so in the future, Paylocity and Paychecks would have that liability. If there were any problems with payroll, it would be solved. And frankly, a lot of, we were talking about other areas, having a township with as many employees as we've had, having a third-party subcontractor at a very reasonable rate with Paychecks, it's an option that we need to consider. So the other piece that we've needed to work on are the rates of which we're paying, obviously, for our accounting services. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's obviously a problem, but I think if you have somebody who is properly trained in QuickBooks, you shouldn't have an ongoing problem. And then you just have an accountant who is just doing monthly oversight checks, and that's it. And then we don't have the funds for this. And so you can't spend what you can't have. And if we don't have leadership in this office that can be trained to manage this responsibility, then why are they in leadership? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. People use QuickBooks in small businesses, in businesses all the time. If we're paying salaries to manage this office, this should be $400 class should be a no-brainer for us.
Accountant Nader, are you still on?
think she is.
Yes,
Of the
Can you hear?
Yes, I'm on. Trustee Page? Can you hear me?
Linda,
of the
can you?
180 of the projected, how much of that is,
Yes.
Yeah,
of the $180,000 projected, how much of that is the payroll services versus accounting services? Them being rolled together is concerning to me. They really should be separate, just like HR is a separate line item.
so Paylocity, from what I hear, cost about 60,000.
Okay.
I think that, we need to, again, have the decision between Paylocity and Paychecks. Paycheck seems like a very good option.
And how much was Paychecks again?
13,000.
So, wait, Paychecks is 13,000, but Paylocity is 60,000?
this is why I wanted to bring accountant Nader in because Linda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's trustee Page. I was
Yeah.
gonna say trustee McGovern. That's not my fault.
I wanted to make a
It's trustee Page.
comment about.
You had
third
expressed
parties.
some. Yeah, that's why I'm asking you, you were not actually pro outsourcing the payroll because it seems like municipalities have more complicated issues that these outsourced places won't operate. So we will still need somebody in-house doing the work, correct?
Yes,
Did I say that?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And I wanted to make something very clear. Paychecks and Paylocity are not liable. What they are liable for is if they make a mistake in paying the payroll taxes, then they will step up and take care of penalties and interest. But what you have to understand is you are giving someone a data entry.
But they're not
clerk.
they're not responsible for the integrity of the data.
Trustee Geist, I couldn't hear you. The audio on this is horrible.
Yeah,
You
on
know,
our
they
end.
keep-
Cutting out every 3 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because it does drop out, so it's hard to tell when someone's talking. I apologize. So they're not liable for the integrity of the data that's entered. That's still going to be the responsibility of someone here. So if
Absolutely.
that person is already entering the data, why are we paying for someone
Right.
else to process the data?
Right. If you take a look at it as being X amount of steps for payroll, what happens is you're basically turning the payroll over to someone every 2 weeks with all the information that they need to do the data entry. And at that point, they do the data entry. That's their only
What's the
function.
benefit?
So if you tell them to set up a new category for something, you don't have somebody that's earning $12 an hour that's going to make a decision if it's post or pre-tax. You have to tell them that. You have to tell them what bank accounts to use. You have to tell them what the different categories of deductions are. And Trustee Page, this is where that comes in. I have a lot of clients that use Paychecks, Paylocity, ADP, but they have different types of payroll where they have, people on salary, or they have people that are just hourly. Here, when we enter a payroll, it can be that, there might be an employee that had 8 hours of regular, 8 hours of sick, 4 hours of vacation, and all that has to be entered into the system correctly. Once you start with a payroll company, you still are responsible for everything other than doing the data entry and then pressing the button to pay payroll taxes.
Okay, so Supervisor Hewitt, what is the benefit you're seeing?
We can go through their latest proposal.
I just want your verbiage. If you could just give me the bullet points.
I don't understand why it's appealing. So I don't understand.
How many employees receive paychecks from the township
34 approximately.
37.
for highway? 37, so that's
37.
all three.
Yes.
So
So what would it look like to you? We'd have paychecks. Would we still have, a finance person and then have an accountant? What would it look like?
Okay, so again, what after January of late January, we worked together with the accountant, all the things that needed to be done for this job to be carried out. And there needs to be payroll, there needs to be some specific accounting help that needed to be an oversight. And as we had started out the relationship with Linda Nader and Lisa Rose, we had created this, the idea that there would be Linda that would be training Lisa Rose. Was the original idea, and frankly, we thought that would be enough.
But then you transition Lisa role out of that responsibility and brought Gerald in.
We're gonna cover
And
that in the
Gerald-
next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's personnel.
Okay.
Yes, and at that time, Linda Nader gave, we gave all the different roles that needed to be done to Linda Nader. And she decided which roles needed to be done by an accountant, which roles needed the background to be done with a bookkeeper backgrounds that could be trained. And so we've been trying to get to the point where we had very specialized accounting help just for what we needed it. We realized that we didn't have the in-house, in-staff abilities to keep.
Right. Well, because you can't ask people who are licensed social workers to become accountants or bookkeepers, in
Right.
fairness.
So again, so now you'll have someone, is what you're saying, you'll have someone in accounting, you'll have someone in payroll, would be paychecks or whichever. And then and then you'd have an accountant?
No, so here's,
That's all I'm asking.
okay, so here's where we're getting to, is that the accountant would have the ability to, again, help train and create the policies that are gonna keep the people internally going as they need to go. Would have, in an ideal world, paychecks that would help us execute this. The person that right now, who's been going through a QuickBooks class and who is getting trained as such, is Joe Blow. And he has the experience from having an MBA, from having the experience of the background in work environments that he's had, that he has managed payrolls for a variety of different industries. So the idea is that, and again, for the last 3 months, he's needed to fill in because of the opening in food pantry and having to rebuild that section of the township. So it was a slower transition than we would have liked because of the food pantry need and the transportation beginning. So Gerald would be the person that would, because he has the background that's required, and he has the ability to be trained in what's needed to be done. He would be the one that would help do the bookkeeping internally, the basic stuff that Linda would then need to be the accountant.
Didn't you sit with Linda Nader and learn QuickBooks?
How can you learn QuickBooks in one day,
I don't know how you can learn it not looking at the computer.
you know? Gotta
That's probably
see that
more
computer.
personnel.
Yeah.
I mean, and I really don't mean to
No, I
interrupt,
mean-
but I know we're gonna.
No, I'm just asking.
All I see is this, you know, we're bringing in 2.7, we're deficit spending based off of this draft by another $1 million. We need to cut things, and just what we're hearing in public comment, our taxpayers want services. So what we need to do is we need to cut this as trim and lean as possible. And everything I see here is adding by quite a bit, double-digit percentages, if not more. I mean, if you just look at the salaries, the budget for last year, and that was the adjusted budget, because remember, it was 510, and that's the adjusted from what it really was. And now we're saying 610, but we spent 372. I mean, look at everything. The attorney, the adjusted budget brought it to 50, but we're now saying 144,000. Audit, I know audits cost, you know, we saw $20,000. So, but this is saying 40. We're doing a lot more fees and conferences and training. $25,000 from $7,000 last year. $90,000 for quarterly newsletters and special notices. We budgeted at 37, and I thought we figured out what we were going to spend for the newsletters. We can't do this. We just can't do this. Pace, 140,000. That's after we already upped it to 125. There's the Jobs Club, that's 10,000, when we always spend and give a free admission for our township, taxpayers. They still have to pay, but we're giving more money there. We can't do this. We just can't do this. DEI, we all agree, it's always necessary, but we're already doubling what we did last year. And then youth and family, why is it 100,000? Van maintenance, 2,000. I mean, these are crazy numbers. Sorry. I know I'm on a soapbox, but we can't, this is $1 million that we have to cut just to be even. And people don't care that we have to train 3 people to be able to pay people. They don't care. They want senior services. They want other services. They want their food pantry.
It's so hard. You're right. You are completely right, Kurt Polowitz. It's like, there's all these demands and comparing us to other communities and why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing that? But this is the reality of what we're dealing with. It's not that a choice. It's not that we all ran for office because we care about people and because we want to do what's best for people. And trust and believe the hours that we spend at this table are a testament to that. We have been here till 1 o'clock in the morning. Been here till 11 o'clock at night numerous times trying to solve these. So you're right. We have to cut somewhere.
Communications and newsletters, how much are we paying for postage?
Each newsletter at the very least is gonna cost 15,000.
Could we cut that in half and deliver them to the library and other public places? Or
Well, the
residents
challenge is,
grab and then do electronic? I mean, it's 15,000 right there. I think we have to go through every library
Yeah,
and make it
you're right.
grassroots.
but the reason why we did that was because so many people don't have access to computers and so many of our seniors are not.
But a library is that you pick up you don't mail it, you pick it up, you see it
Yeah.
by, and then
Or I guess the park districts, right?
I had a conversation there the other day when I was tutoring. Yes,
Because
there's some consolidation opportunities.
All the park districts have senior programs,
Right.
so we could put them there.
Right.
I'm just thinking out of the box.
So looking at the total, the piece that we also have to be aware of is that we're not allowed to spend or not allowed to keep levying. We have more than 2.5 times our levy in saved. And we have more than that. And so part of the reason why we actually have to spend more than the levy is because if we don't, we also can't continue to keep growing, meaning that we can't continue to free services. Part of the issue is that the reason why we haven't had services is because we never started to. Will pay dividends in services in the future. So when it comes to each of these line items, and I'm sure that we can go through, there's part of it is to make sure that we can have an ability to spend. We're likely going to be still $500,000 barely over, even if we were to try to do the most that we were trying to do, we couldn't spend this budgeted amount. This is allowing for example, the ability to have leeway.
What's
When you already have.
community services? Is that like the shred event? $56,000 in community services.
Oh, you're asking about that? No, that was a lot of the big costs related to the food pantry. So it's the van, so some youth and family service. So yeah, pretty well everything from the everything from transportation pace down. So like the 10, 3108, 4180, all the way through the end. I think, does that make sense? What I knew was, compensation, benefits, office expenses, administrative support. I pulled out the things I knew. Everything that was left, I called it community services. So I can't remember exactly which budget lines went in there. But I did.
I feel like there needs an overlap there.
We have nothing budgeted for counseling,
Five.
500,
No, there was 500, but not this.
yeah, so nothing is budgeted for counseling, so we have decided we're not offering counseling services anymore.
Well, what do we want to do? We want to go through it. We want to go through it line item by line item. Do you have specific ones that you want to work with? I think there was quite a lot of discussion around the administration.
I mean, we overhired. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we talked about holding off on, replacing the food pantry situation until we had a real close look at this and we knew what we were dealing with.
And you have a good plan. Other,
So we need to budget something in there because we're, accountant Nader is, and I think what we're trying to get to is what would a transition plan be where we could be more self-sufficient. We need to have some number in there to fund the continued engagement with accountant Nader. And potentially someone else on an ongoing basis to do some level of review.
Somebody could do what accountant Nader does for $3,000 a month.
Yeah, if we-
Municipal experience.
Yeah.
I think that's,
But that's only the first part, that's only the second part. The first part is who's gonna actually do the work. And getting
You're
that
gonna need
done.
a part-time clerk.
Agreed.
Accountant, they really call it.
So if we're looking, I'm trying to help move this along. Do we want to, so I'm looking at a couple of things right on page 3. We've got part-time maintenance services, that's 40,000. We've got a plan to incorporate solar. I appreciate the point that the supervisor made, but this is the year to invest. But do we feel this is the year to invest? We do have some reserves and we have been putting some aside for forms of capital improvement. So that might be something we want to maybe be able to highlight as here's the capital improvement we made. I think we've got to take based on the discussion around the table. And I know the finance committee or the personnel committee is going to talk about roles and responsibilities and how much we should be doing internally.
approved for solar, because I know I had my house assessed and we just don't have enough sun.
Really?
So I think we need to get like an estimate before we even discuss that.
Okay.
Because it might not even be viable.
We don't have any red trees.
It's more the exposure and the winters is what I was told.
Your house faces the same direction this building does, doesn't
It
it?
does, yeah. It does, yeah.
All right. So I'm just gonna make some suggestions.
Okay.
Taking out solar, 170,000, right? That gets us down.
Mhm.
And that's nice. It's a green initiative, all of the good things there. Outsourced payroll and accounting, we need something you suggested like 3,000 a month as a starting point. We need a transition plan. There's a number of 60,000. Is that some, and again, this is the budget we're setting now. We can always come back and revisit the budget based on actual expenditures.
I don't know. I still think we should pay the $400 for the QuickBooks class. Keep the payroll responsibility in-house, so it's $400. And then the accounting oversight, which could be $3,000 to $5,000 a month. Let's just say worst case scenario, that's still only 70,000.
Okay.
So,
90.
and the HR okay, so I think we need to better utilize the competence that we have and the ability to train.
That HR is done.
Mhm.
And then this HR consulting services, under HR consulting services, what are we getting for $20,000? Because what did we pay in 2022 and 2023? Just them helping us source people that we should be able to source. They're just reading resumes
Indeed,
because
yeah.
they didn't do proper background checks. There's no, I'm just trying to understand what we're paying for.
They provide no human resources to the staff here at all, none.
So it's like, I scratch it.
Yes,
True.
yes.
What
No, it
they
is
do-
true. It is true because an employee reached out and asked, and the employee was told, we do not do that service.
Let's put that in there, 20.
So, what they do is they make sure that we have the training and the, ability to make. So from the perspective of the fact that we never had any HR, in the past, I think that's a huge problem, that we didn't develop any HR abilities. It was always the supervisor's responsibility and then it wasn't done.
So were
So-
they giving the advice to switch people around? Is that the kind of HR you're talking about? Like what HR are they advising on?
For example,
Because everyone's been changing jobs. You can't say that they.
That's not true. Everyone is not changing jobs.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think anyone.
We've had discussions on this, so I don't.
Yeah.
Just don't waste time, exactly. Don't waste time.
Budget, thank you.
But, okay, so the HR is the questionable for the 20,000.
Yes.
Okay, can I wait? Can we hold that in advance till after
Mhm.
the, okay? What about some of these contingencies? And
Were there contingency, well, yeah, there are contingencies that have been raised, like from 10,000 to 15,000, right?
well, and
Or,
it's-
or where are we, you know,
well, I'm looking
no.
10, 13, 10 was
16.
a new contingency,
Oh, okay. I see 1650 went from 10,000.
right? And assessor's office has a contingency as well, not to put John on the hot seat, but I just want to make sure we're talking contingencies.
Dan, we're talking. I'm sorry.
I was just starting to work, looking for things. I'm looking at things that are named contingency. And so, and have they
John
been-
is a contingency, there's no question about it.
No, don't touch John.
is there any savings we can have across? I see one, I see. $13.10, I see, there's another one down at $16.50.
What does it mean by just contingency? What does that mean exactly?
It's a-
It's like a little savings account in case something comes up over that.
42.40.
I'm not sure, that's little nickel and diming.
Well, there's 100,000 across all of them, so.
Yeah, but to take them off really is
Right.
probably not good practice for that. I think before you do the contingencies, because they're not really changing dramatically, I think you'd want to change, look at deeply into the things that have changed dramatically.
Well, we have some discussion around newsletters. I think this was planned for 4 newsletters a year and a mailing. So is this a suggestion would be twice a year and another way of distributing? I don't know. I'm just trying to help.
How does our electricity go up?
Um,
Because I thought we signed a solar, that we were getting our electricity from solar and
We never went through with that for a variety of different reasons, so that never happened.
what are the reasons?
It was, had a number of concerns in particular. And so with his concerns, we decided not to go forward.
That's just kind of vague when we have a savings opportunity.
Well, the highway has other electrical needs.
And somebody just changed the electrical supplier. That okay for.
That hasn't, we haven't changed any kind of our electrical, anything that I know of,
You do it?
No, I didn't change anything.
I apologize.
No, it's a great question to ask. Do we want to put a budget line in? Is there a number that the boards or the finance committee is comfortable with for year one?
I thought they were gonna come with a proposal to borrow money from us. That's what I had heard.
There was a discussion of the law.
Yeah,
So if we want to hold off on that, I just want to make sure.
I was just expecting more updates. I don't feel well informed.
Okay.
On the program.
Do they have a meeting coming up? Will we know? anything?
Maybe we can invite them to our, one, like,
They could come
to our next
present.
meeting
Yeah.
and.
Is,
give
well,
some
is there,
proposals.
Lisa Rose is on the,
Yes, she
can
is.
she let us know? Can she give us an idea of when she can present?
I didn't hear half of what you guys were saying because the sound cut out. So what are you asking?
The question was mental health board update to the full township board or the mental health group board, I guess it is. Is that something you or someone on the board could provide to the full township board at some future meeting?
June.
June, fine, that's future.
There's a May meeting next week.
Sorry, did you hear the question?
The next meeting to you guys is June, but they have a meeting next week also. So what did you want to present?
Right, so sorry, finish your thought. No, we would like the mental health board, maybe after your next meeting, to come and present to the full township board.
An update, just an update of progress so far and thought processes.
What the vision is or where's, yeah.
So
Well,
here on the,
Who's talking? That's what I went
is
in.
the draft budget.
I can't. Diane has a draft budget up that we haven't seen yet.
The draft budget is on the website.
Okay.
I could make sure that you guys get a copy of it.
Oh, I've seen some of it.
Thank you.
All right,
There's-
so I'll try to get guidance.
Or. Sorry,
Sorry, finish your thought. It's okay.
did you guys want a copy of the draft budget from the mental health board? And the other thing that they were gonna talk about, I believe it's gonna be this meeting, it might be the next one though, is kind of, they went through all of the surveys and things like that, and I think they are gonna have a better idea of what they want to proceed to look to fund to help them better establish what a levy they're gonna need. So that's coming up as well, and then they're almost done with their bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
It's right. On the front page of the mental health.
Okay,
Board meeting, I guess it would be good to decide, are we, is it gonna be a loan and an intergroup loan, or is there gonna be some sort of seed money that's part of the budget?
I think those two should be alone.
A loan? Okay. I appreciate the time that was put in. Do we want, I mean, I can have follow-up meetings, or we can keep going through this. Is there a number that we want to try to get to? A percentage? Do we want nothing above levy? Because I think that doesn't give us any services at all, right? Including even funding at the current level for GA, right? We have to have something on paper that we vote on by next Tuesday. How would you like to proceed?
Where is is there a line item for the staff's request for budget?
I believe they were Supervisor Hewitt and Operations Manager Wolf can correct me. My understanding is they were incorporated in the meeting that we had on Monday. And then you can see there were some additional asks that did not get incorporated in the budget. So my understanding is that yes, they were incorporated into this budget, into these budget requests.
Which line item is that at?
They're in all of them.
They're all-
That's the point. They've been incorporated in.
Some of
I
the,
know, I think that's the part that's challenging though, because it's like we know information, but we don't know information. So how can we really make a fair? How can we make an informed decision? It's vague.
well, I know, so some was they wanted more training, right? Then that got factored in the number of lines, more publications going out, that got factored into the website
Okay.
update. So those were the sort of things that were asked.
And the trainings are part of their performance reviews. So that's all part of their professional development and personal professional development, sorry.
Those are the two I remember, Supervisor.
And is that like for each person who's on staff here, there's an opportunity for them to have training so that we're maximizing,
Yes.
helping them grow and each person? Okay.
That's partly why there's an increase in the budget for training next year, yes. Around basic computer skills as well as specific to their roles.
Events were another piece that were asked for specifically.
Events,
Community outreach. community-
yeah, that cut program could be a great event. To fund it, to have a fundraiser, and
Well,
that's one of the,
cut ones. So
also
Yeah.
combining those resources with, I mean, the fact that there were 3 shred events within 2 miles of this building.
Yeah.
For that last shred event was just it was a, I don't know, a gross misuse staff resources, any hourly compensation, the fees for all of that. I mean, it just, we need to be more forward thinking and looking at opportunities to combine our resources so that we're really working with other taxing entities and not all paying for the same thing. Like, that's just, well, it's so silly, it's just not, every time we do that, that's a missed opportunity to offer a service to our community.
Now, the computer program, item number 10-1625, that went up a lot.
Yeah,
What is that? Why is it going up from $7,000 to $25,000?
sorry, to which budget line again?
1625.
That's meaning and dues.
Oh, there's-
24.
Yeah, no, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
that's
you're right.
probably The paid software is
The pace is in there. That's the
the
20,000.
paid software program for the.
Oops, oops,
No, no.
I didn't follow the line. Yeah, I was on the wrong.
What's the software
I
that
had
you're using
crossed
for the
it.
bus?
Stacy's going
So
back.
meetings and
Okay,
dues
but
are
it's still,
that?
we're using the pace buses, and that's the software for the pace bus.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess the line,
Thank you.
sorry,
Clarifying.
my eyes lost track here.
It's okay,
From $7,000
the
to
25,000.
25 for meetings, membership fees, conferences and training.
So that's where training, membership fees and conferences, that all was a lot of what the staff was asking for. Or trainings, being able to go to.
That's
various
more than double
conferences.
though.
And there's
Membership,
more staff.
yeah, I still think we can be more granular than that, because like, there's a big the staff is not responsible for fees of memberships of different organizations that we should be part of this township. And that should not be part of their training fees, so that should be its own line item. I think some of these situations, we want to be really specific about breaking that out, because
It starts looking like a slush fund.
Right.
So these categories were created some time ago. We can uncreate these line items into something.
break them down more.
And we have.
Sure.
But it's really
Maybe
okay when
something.
it's a really small number, but the numbers are getting a lot larger. And it does start looking like, on the job training, and it's fine for training, for getting better, but are we teaching people totally how to do the job? We probably shouldn't do that.
Well, also too, like but I don't think membership fees should be part of honor, right? There is, right? I mean,
So there's a variety of memberships that could be optional. for-
oh, okay,
Right?
okay.
Sorry, I don't want to derail that discussion, but I do remember one of the pieces of software that's factored into the next line computer programs is a piece of software, pantry software. We saw that last week. That's.
We did, but it wasn't. that
We haven't
expensive.
approved it.
I agree. And this is budget. This is
Yeah.
potential. The other is a piece called for case and G&A management. And that's about 20K. So that was a piece that
Can you
the
say that again? What kind of management?
General system.
general assistance, sorry, and case management.
And that software is 20K,
Is that right?
21
21
and what are we currently using?
pen and paper.
or Excel. I guess
It's not.
So
even-
what-
pen and paper.
Trustee Dice said, do you have the spreadsheet for what you added up and to add into these numbers? Maybe that would be helpful, to break it up even further, like.
Yeah, like the software is 21K, the
Yeah.
technical support is this, that software, you know what I'm saying? Because software services and technical support.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just to add them up, so how did you get to this number?
Then that's partly on me. I put down one where I thought the largest increases or discussions would be around building maintenance improvements.
And maybe that's a good start, the biggest increases.
Auditing, I think a part of it was, I think the discussion was, can we cut that back to 20K?
Because we know what it is, right?
And I know there was discussion about potentially a second audit, and maybe we don't need that this year. We can go through and look for savings in each budget line, and I know we're sort of doing that in your asking for more details behind. Here's a number we need you to hit: township supervisor and operations manager and assessor. Come back to us and tell us what numbers you would like to put in the budget. So that's
Yeah. Because 16, where is that? 16, where's the, so staff training, 1638. Wasn't that also part of something else somewhere else?
There was some training, and I believe the way it was explained, and we talked about it, there
Member
is,
fees and training, so it's like we're putting it in more than one place.
right, and I'm sorry, I cut you off, finish your thought.
No, it's in more than one place, so it's,
The staff training down in the 4200s was related to training for GNA personnel, so that was reported.
oh, okay, thank you for clarifying. And what did we come to the agreement with, because we still have not seen presentation from the career counseling center of how we're coming to doubling that from 5,000.
In the past, we just gave them the money. We didn't really get, was more generalized. Now, we have all of the clients that are going through our general assistance. If they meet the criteria for the general assistance need, then they will get a free scholarship, completely free to the Career Networking Center. And everybody in general now gets a 50% discount.
Okay,
So it's quite a bit more help for the township, and it's a much better deal.
How much is it to go to their career center?
It's currently $100. I think they're gonna be raising it shortly
So we're.
For what period of time?
$10,000
for a year.
and then they have to pay. I know it's not a lot of money, but they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
right.
So when
So
they're,
what, so when we had before we were using the careers, I'm just trying to remember now, sorry.
Like the job bank.
I thought we had it, yeah, I thought we
We
had a job bank
that was
here.
successful for years.
Because didn't Joy Dooley run that?
so what we did,
Sarah.
what we did have was, yes, Joy, and then also Sarah. And so we were paying about half her salary. So instead of for specifically jobs, so instead of paying 10,000, it was a lot more.
Okay. Okay, I think Clerk Pollitt is right. If someone's looking for a job, asking them to pay.
So sometimes people are changing jobs where they're not out of a job when they're looking for a job.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
And so where we're essentially means testing it is that if you qualify for our assistance, then it's free.
Okay, so it's, okay.
If we
got it.
still gave the $5,000, would it still be free for
No.
our general assistance?
No,
Could we give them a stipend to help those people?
so this is really the best option. Where we're not spending, we're literally spending at least 3 or 4 times this in salary and then some.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if it's not free for our general assistance because we haven't reached some threshold that 10,000 gives, if we give 5,000, if it's not free for our general assistance, would we be better off just giving those people a stipend? Those, you
so
know,
just
how many
paying
people are they? You know, maybe it's 10 people, so maybe our contribution isn't 10,000, but it's $5,000, and then we give, you know, a couple $100 for people to go.
So
Is a
the-
stipend.
here's the thing is that they don't wanna do that. We had an extensively long conversation with trying to figure out what's the best option for both parties. And they felt like a once a year annual in ongoing reports was something that we're going to get from now on, is how many people are going to the career networking. They didn't previously give those. So this is a really good, I think, deal for the people that are coming, that was what was being offered.
So I think, what do the other townships do? I think Naperville gives them a little bit more, but I think the other ones surrounding it don't give this at all.
So it's really only
Wheatland doesn't,
in
yeah.
Naperville Township, the main, or the main township that has a relationship with them is Naperville Township. It is in Naperville Township, so
Yeah,
it kind of makes sense that we would be working together with them. Because they are there, and Naperville is a good chunk of Lisle.
I know Wheatland does it too, but they don't give $10,000. It's kind of a sponsorship is what it is for this, and then.
Does Wheatland use the career center?
Mhm.
Well, how did they know negotiate something different.
They didn't really negotiate. Because it's a sponsorship sort of thing. Because you know, it's because then the people pay to go, so it's us supporting them.
Okay.
So I would, you know, I know it's not one of the bigger ticket, but it's doubling. And it is also different than what our surrounding areas are doing, and it's still not a full service to our, you know, to our people.
You people are very impressive because you know about all these programs, you know, about all the different townships, so I'm just, I'm honored to be part of this because you all think very hard about this and you really know and you feel for this community too, so I appreciate all that. What board, finance committee, we could keep going through line by line. We've had some first thoughts about things. I've made some notes here. You know, and I'm not trying to cut short the discussion at all. I'm just trying to say, you know, right now, reserve fund 102,743.5 and 172,932 out of the G&A reserve fund, which I don't believe it has. So we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that. The reserve fund, I think, is only like 40,000 for G&A right now. So I don't know how that gets.
How it happens is after, and this happens every year, is that after we get the money from the first tranche, then we fund the GA fund from this budget. So after it's decided, then the funds always come from the town. All fund to the GA fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
They don't they do two?
But the first sum is more than enough to fund the GAs, so that's where it generally goes, because it comes in several chunks.
It's not broken out. It used to be broken out. It's not.
It's
anymore.
not broken up, right?
So they just take the whole amount. You could argue should take that.
Got it.
But you had 158,000 in as of 3/31/2022.
Sorry, what number is that? Oh, the fund balance for G&A, right? So we drew down on it significantly last year because it's 40. Oh, you're saying 22, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, well, I went off the audit. I went off of whatever the annual statement was, and I thought it showed a fund balance of like 39,000.
That's probably at the end of this year because you drew
Right.
down 130,000.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, so it needs to be replenished to meet the commitments to the G&A part of our budget.
You can't do that
Usually
again.
Sorry.
You can't do that again. Right? You'll be broke. If you drew it down $120,000 and you have 158,000 fund balance, you can't draw it down another $130,000 next year.
Well, that's what I was asking. How does
Yeah.
that get refunded? How does that fund itself get repopulated with additional funds?
Just 11.
Right, so that's all we have to draw on?
No, it's also the ability to take from the town fund, which is decided in this budget.
Maybe, maybe we could put that in perspective. We have $4.2 million. Okay, sounds like a lot of money. And it is. But you're taking in, last year you took in 2.4 from 2,447,187. Spending on if you approve this budget the way it is, you're spending 3,577,985. Your balance goes down. Now, this doesn't include taking any money and funding GA. You wind up with 3,081,000 in the subsequent year, 2024, if you get your maximum of 5%, you have income of 2% in your expenses, you're at 3.7. Now your balance that started off at 4.2 million is down to 1,894,000. By 2026, you're negative.
Yeah,
I don't mean to be,
no, it's
to tell you what the urgency is. This, we're not going down, we're not going down a hill, we're going down a vertical drop. And I'll be honest with you, we can't. I just can't see us surviving this.
Yeah.
So what's the ideal number to cut? Is it 1 million or is it 500? To get through what we have right now
Well, there's a lot. of
and hopefully
contingency
slim
here.
down in the future, like.
That's where I
what
would
is-
start.
What's the number? 'Cause to get to 1 million,
I think to answer your
I got to about
question,
500,000.
this is, we've done this for quite a while.
Yeah,
The key to this is, and I know it sounds really bad, but you have to go through every expense and you have to explain what those expenses are and why they're in there. And if it's discretionary and it's something that you can do without, you have to do without.
Is it
We're always
historically
gonna-
happening
yeah, should we match completely?
or deficit spending,
I-
unless you have a project?
It really depends. Maybe I can I'll give you a real life example. In my budget, I have, my transportation, which is historically been very low. I had to boost the state of Illinois, instead of having hearings in Wheaton, we have to have our hearings in Springfield. So I have to take, this is an unfunded mandate that's come up to us. Where I have to take a person, put them in a car, drive them down to Springfield, feed them. And usually if we're having hearings, we have a whole day hearings, they're gonna have to stay overnight. And just the auto reimbursement, the mileage reimbursement is almost $250. And this is an expense that we've never had before, that there's nothing I can do about it, and I have to include it. So I would respectfully suggest that particular line item, when I increase that, it's based on something that I can't control.
Got it. Whereas there's things that we can't.
Is that
Yeah.
1624?
No, the one I was referring to.
Yeah. What's
In the
is
1400s, it's 14.
in the
it's,
four, I'm sorry,
It's a 14 line
14s.
item.
I got it, thank you.
Is it 10, 14, 12?
1014, yeah, 1014 12, yeah. And I'd be happy to go through my line items with you and explain what's happening.
Right now? Just-
But-
Well,
What number? Because I,
14, 12.
yeah, no, sorry.
No, he's asking for a bottom line.
Oh,
That's what he.
Or
wants.
top line.
What number are you gonna lose?
Yeah.
You're going over, but how much you wanna go over? And John described a perfect example of what you should consider doing. Take the fund balance and build it up and go out 4 years
Mhm.
and see where you're gonna wind up. And then have a discussion. Where do you want that fund balance to be? You want it 6 months? You want it 3 months? You want it a year? I think most people, will say 6 months. 6 months to a year is reasonable. You don't want to go below 6 months. I know, and from my perspective, I have a little different perspective, because if I don't get funding for a year, if I have the storm of all storms, I'm gonna be writing checks and not getting any money in for a long time. Right, I may get reimbursed, but absent GA, because GA isn't subject to the tax scale. No, it's not subject to the fund balance. You can accumulate more than that. But you should figure out, where do you want your balances to be? And then you're gonna bounce around a little bit, but then you work it back and say, well, this is what I can afford this year. It's not easy.
yeah, and I'm. agree.
Well, and maybe a way to start to do is look at a couple of the past ones, maybe not last year, but, a couple of years past and see kind of how they have done it. To see what's typical and what's not.
And move systematically under that we don't have, so we have to understand. But if we want to have services, we have to invest in them.
That's
There are
what-
things
but in the
that-
past-
paychecks.
But in the past, we didn't have all of the overhead that we have now. We didn't have all the salaries that we've added. So that's a challenge. That is impacting the ability to provide services.
And there's
Those
some
people-
services we had before we don't have now,
Right.
like the council. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways. to me, a goal is to have it
Yeah,
equal on both sides. I don't know if that's even possible, to tell you the truth, but, you know,
I don't see how it
that's a
could be
lot
possible
to
to do.
go.
Yeah.
That as close as you can to it, you know.
And we traditionally spend quite a few thousand, quite a bit of percent under the budget. This is not meant to be what we actually spend. It's meant to allow for the storms that will eventually come up and that we need to be able to manage in the township.
And then if there is another storm too, we do have some contingency line items. And we do have a fund that, you know, that we could, you know, have a vote, you know, if there's something emergency.
I'm gonna call a small recess,
Okay.
bio purposes, so excuse me.
Okay, well. Should we, that is start,
Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all coming back and giving me the opportunity. So let's look at the overall G&A. We had a brief discussion around funding levels for rent assistance. Does anyone want to propose that we should change any of the numbers here for G&A?
I think we should cut $7,000.
Sorry, so just cut it back to 160.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's make it 160,000 even. Okay, trying to find some savings.
I mean, how much is that gonna save us?
well, if you just start shaving.
Is it, cause is that? I struggle with that, is that's in the times we're in, that's where people are gonna need the most support. I think there's other places we can make some bigger hits. Like one, no solar panel project this year.
Oh, that's,
Okay.
under- yeah,
Okay,
Right?
that's 170.
I would rather not. I'd rather, just based on what's happening in our world. I think that is not, if that's where we want it.
all right. I think we tried to suggest that administration cutting outsourced payroll and accounting down to 70. Is that a number you're comfortable with?
Mhm.
So that's minus 110.
Now we're what, 290?
170 and 110, I think, right?
Mhm.
280,
Right.
okay.
Did you want to leave?
What about the accounting?
Well, I think we should cut that down
You already cut that.
to 70 from 180.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Listen,
And
The
then-
homelessness program, funding of backpack supplies
That's
for
not-
homeless residents. of
That's a
Lowell.
wish list.
Oh, I can wish it.
Yeah.
That's
I
not-
It's
saw
not in
that.
there.
Sorry, I was like,
no, you're fine. I'm sorry, it wasn't clear. Nothing below that is included in the budget.
And actually, that's a really nice thing to do, but we could probably do that with donations.
That's it.
yeah, drives, yeah.
And then
Um,
with mailings, I guess I would push to mail biannually.
Okay.
And advertise about
How frequently are
online
we-
or where to pick up the other 2 copies of the newsletter.
How
So-
frequently are we mailing? the
Quarterly.
newsletter?
We've only had one.
Well,
go out so
yeah.
far.
But what,
We
I
haven't
thought when
started
we agreed to do it, we only agreed to do it like once a year.
We originally were gonna try for 3 times. So we had the funding for 3 times.
And is that what the 37,000? Was for 3 times?
It was for 2 times and it's also printing. So the other aspect of printing is that we printed with a little yellow books, but we also are anticipating needing to have some advertising, for example, with the transportation system.
Mhm.
Whatever else. That we're trying to advertise.
Are we able to use the community?
They're only like 20 or 30 bucks too, so
Yeah.
that would be a really good.
That
way
would
to
be a
get-
savings off the newsletter and.
And you could do it online.
The banks.
The bank.
So the bank it, I mean, all of the banks will do it, Benedictine will do it.
Yeah, and on Maple. Lisle Savings on Maple.
And I'm sure the other communities have scrollers too that we could probably use.
Mhm,
It's not a bad idea.
mhm.
Well, do we want to cut court newsletters down to 45,000? Or do we want to go lower than that?
So here's my challenge with it. We were so focused on making sure that the community knew who we were, what we provided, what we offer. And if that's the thing we start cutting, is that, I don't know, like. Is there a more cost effective way?
Keep the budget where it was last year. It's supposed to be 2.
Okay,
Do you know what I mean?
I think that's a good compromise.
But
Because I-
last year was not,
37,000.
no, that's the actual, not the
Oh,
budget.
sorry,
No, that was
no,
budget.
that's budget. And our actual was 19.
Okay, we had to change that.
I think
So bring it down.
Oh, that's a great
So
idea.
it cost 19,000 to send out the one.
It could literally cost, I mean, the estimate for a new newsletter, the one that we're contemplating could be as much as 20,000
So,
for one newsletter.
Commissioner Young made a good point. What if we only mailed it to the seniors who would qualify?
Let's do who's getting the discount, senior discount for the property tax. And mail it to them.
And then the other ones would just access it via the internet, like we would send a communication that says, go here once a month. You can also use the community bulletin cable channel.
I don't think that'd be nearly as effective. This, I mean, than the newsletter.
I think I agree with you, and the newsletter was something I was really deeply concerned about, but if we're looking to make cuts, we have.
I think there's certain age brackets that I think people read their mail differently. And I think the seniors. I'm not a great mail reader for all the extra stuff. I just think there's differences and I think that could be
Seniors-
money wasted. So, yeah, I would definitely make sure the seniors get it, but that's an expense that.
I mean, here's the thing. that-
I'd rather read it online.
Do you say
We've
that?
got two seniors here. When they
Hard
say,
copy or online?
Look at,
Hard copy sits
Hard
there
copies.
yeah,
and you'll read it eventually,
exactly.
even if it's a day, 2 days, 3 days later.
See, I think that's why I don't like mail. I don't like things sitting there. So, I'll read.
Because I
And
don't
with
know
the
what you
yes.
guys get, but I get over 100 contacts in my computer
Yeah.
a day.
Yeah,
oh,
And,
by 7 AM.
at least, yeah.
yeah.
And so the point is that, you know, I go through part of it and I go, fine, the hell with this. It's
Good point.
time to go down and have.
Would you visit a website? Would you go to the township website? Have you ever gone to the township website and read our newsletter?
I have not, because I'm busy with a lot of political work. I'm on at least half a dozen websites.
So were you aware of what services? So how were you or not aware of any services? Like if we don't have a newsletter, how would you know?
How would I know?
Yeah,
If that's something to drive people to the website, if you're gonna rely on that.
Exactly, if you need it. And,
but like you came here today concerned about the services, right? So
I
like,
came
how do
here,
you
yeah.
know where to find them?
I'm also very active in Joliet, because I go to church in Joliet, a very progressive church. And I get at least, I would say 30 contacts a week, a day from Joliet sources. Those I read because I'm deeply involved in organizing.
Mhm. I guess we just want to make sure that communication's flowing, right?
Mhm.
We want to make sure that people know what services do exist, what services we're looking into providing, but how would you know if you're not getting an email or a newsletter, or you're not actually visiting the township website, which has a plethora of information about our programs and services.
And a newsletter will hang around too, like you just know, like if it for services, you know, it's something that you'll keep in like your drawer, like you would a menu.
resource.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Open it.
Right.
So good discussion. What should we,
Yeah.
what number would you like?
Well, I think that's why we're still discussing.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm driving to close.
Okay, go ahead.
We spent
I get it.
90,000. That was on a newsletter in the Yellow Brick Road.
And the Yellow Brick Road we have to do again for a couple years, right?
So, and that's half of the budgeted amount that
Okay.
we did last year.
So does that make sense then, if we don't have to reprint the Yellow Brick Road every year, if we're only printing it like every other year, every third year?
Going to be, if we're going to be doing this, then my guess is that for the other months that we would like to be doing some newsletters, that we would be printing some and putting them at various locations. I think that, again, the transportation system is gonna need some advertising. I think that, some of the other.
To-do letter that we're gonna make.
Okay, I think that sometimes you need to have, for example, other pieces. Right now, we've been printing up a whole lot of transportation newsletters, transportation pieces specifically for the seniors to educate them about all the different options that are in the transportation program now.
But can't that be in the newsletter? Why does it have to be a separate publication?
What I'm trying to say is that sometimes everything that you're gonna need to use isn't gonna be in the newsletter. So right now, for example, Joe Wolf and myself have gone to various communities, whether it's Arbor Place today, in the past, we did a presentation, passed out the transportation brochure, signed up people for the Ride Your Page, and so that was all paperwork that we needed to have going.
If you're signing the people up there and you're giving the presentation, do they still have to have a handout? Because you just sign them up, so no, they're already in.
Let's see the map. One of the most popular things in this handout is the map, understanding where the borders of Lisle Township are.
I got it, okay.
They want to know the hours that, and the people to call, they want the details.
So what would you like to cut it to?
This for one thing though, in the previous life, the transportation program got the most significant spikes right behind the mailing of the newsletter. The newsletter was probably the most effective way to get the word out about the
We
transportation.
did get a lot of compliments about it.
Yeah. As does tutoring. I see it. It does.
They also have contact information. Answer some of the questions there, who to call, I mean, and it's right there handy.
Right, if you're not printing the Yellow Brick Road again, which was a big expense, then
Yes.
those things should be covered should be able to still fall within that amount, right?
No, it was less than $2,000. For the Yellow Brick Road, which was not very much. And if I was to say how much we would cut it, I think to allow for at least 2 newsletters and for some printing is at the very minimum, which would be at the very, to cut it a lot would be 40, to go down to 45,000 is the, I think, the lowest that we could go.
Is the printing, all the printing that happens here as well, that's all in here, printing and publishing? So everything that comes off our copiers, that's in our printing and publishing as well?
No, this would be if we needed, for example, to have something specifically printed that
Okay.
was more than.
Got it. I just didn't know if this copy printer, that would be admin cost, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Solar, minus 120, reduce the county and administrative service audit, so that's down 20. And I might propose that we cut the mosquito to 5, and you've got a 15,000 contingency. See, maybe that's what could be covered for that. Go ahead.
We previously were spending 51,000 in mosquitoes in 2021, so to be clear, going down to 5 is extremely, I think, problematic if we have a bad year. We
Especially,
don't
yeah.
know what the year is gonna
Okay.
be.
Yeah, if someone who backs up to the forest reserve.
We have to have enough money if there's a spray. If there's
Right.
a spray, that 5,000 is out of the.
so what did we do last year? Because
didn't
we
need-
said that.
We didn't need a spray, so
No, I know, but when we budgeted, we took that into account. Did we not? That if we need a spray, we could, because it would
Frankly, we
reduce
didn't-
on your.
we didn't Yes,
recommendation.
yes, it was. Right.
Okay,
So the only reason why we need a spray is if it is a bad year and the traps that we have in our township tell us that we need to spray.
okay. And then how much is this?
But we don't control
Does anyone
that, really.
remember?
We really don't control whether, well, we do, the main thing we control is the ability to know what's going on. And the ability to decide to spray, and the contract that we're creating to make sure that it's a affordable thing.
Is spraying something that's consolidated in village governments? So if it came down to it, maybe we could find,
Well, does Village of Lisle spray?
yeah, and they partner with Woodridge.
So is there an opportunity there? I'm just,
We've looked into it, all the different municipalities, Village of Lisle and I think Woodridge in particular, they're with Clark. So they have a totally different system. Naperville does their own. They have their own 100% only in Naperville. They do all of it themselves. So they have the truck and everything.
the highway department does it?
No, sorry, not the Naperville Township, the city of Naperville.
Oh, I was gonna say.
If we reduced it to 10,000, that's still triple the amount of last year.
It is, but the odds are, we're only likely to, we already. The odds are that we would likely only have the larvicide as the cost, meaning the larvicide total cost is likely to be less than 2,000. That's the likely cost. If there is not a bad year and there is no sprays necessary.
But since last year wasn't a bad year, is there a potential? I don't know what the
I've
cycle
heard
is.
that this year could be a bad year. That's what everybody said, is that the odds are this year is gonna be a bad one.
And last year it wasn't bad, but the previous years it was, like you couldn't even walk from your car to your door.
So last year we spent $2,300. So, and you were suggesting like. What the 5, like doubling what was.
Is that there's only 2 people right now that are trained by the state to do this. 2 people in our township and 1 is a volunteer. So if it's meaning that if there is any, right now, it would be the only other person is me.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to create a geo map to make sure that it's a better map, and that is giving me some ideas of where things are, but the county GIS department is going to help us create a better map.
Why? I'm confused as to why the supervisor of the township would be spraying for mosquitoes.
I'm not spraying, it's
Mhm.
dropping
Dropping the
larvicides.
larvicide. Okay, but wouldn't that be, why wouldn't that be done under,
Not my job.
okay.
That's handled under township,
Oh,
not, yeah.
Okay, so, sorry, don't want to cut off discussion, but leave it to one. Then, based on not knowing what's gonna come.
sorry.
At the worst, it would likely be 2 sprays is what we've been told, and per spray, it's about $8,000.
So let's, 16, are you comfortable
Well,
with 16?
2,000 last year, that was how many?
No,
lar-
no.
that was
No
a
spray
lot.
last year.
Had the spray.
I don't think you
We're
need the
not
drop
including
and
the
the,
larvicide.
I don't think you need the drop and 2 sprays. You're probably gonna need the drop and a spray, but it's good to plan it in case we have to do a second spray, right?
Right.
But we won't need a 3rd spray.
Right.
You
So we
know.
don't need,
You don't know.
Yeah, right.
You don't
We
know.
don't know.
Well, there are contingencies too.
so then should we,
19,
And this year, who, I mean, how do you want it to be dropped?
and that's what I'm asking, is that if we have a volunteer that is offering to be both compensated with hours that are due and with pay, or my point is that I'm the only other alternative right now.
so who's the volunteer who's offering to do it as a volunteer but being paid? That's not volunteering then.
He has volunteer hours that he needs to work off.
Oh, okay, got you. So that's good that we've got someone who has to work. Okay, so that's a win. But then what's the compensation we're talking about?
If he works off his volunteer hours, then he's offered to continue for compensation.
Or what does that look like?
Can we just leave it at 20 and there's contingency too? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right.
So what
moving down
was
the
your-
budget.
What was your ask then, Diane?
I would suggest 20 and leaving it at that.
And at that dollar amount, does that keep you from having to run around and do the drafts?
It keeps me from potentially, yes,
Okay.
and getting it.
Good question.
Is there a training cost to drop the larva side?
We already did that. Nope.
There's no training.
The Illinois Department of Public Health came and trained us like a month ago.
So far I've got no solar, 170, reduced the county 120, reduced newsletters 45, one audit, so minus 20 there. And that gets us down to 355.
The other one here would be legal. You know, we talked about this pretty much extent when we were doing the revised budget. And that's why we had the budget in here of 50. So now it's at 144. So I mean.
Can we take off that 44 and search for someone who are not paying them, like per hour?
Sorry, can you say that again?
I think at least take off the 44,000.
Well, is
on
the
that
144, does that
144?
include all of the attorneys though?
Yeah.
Or,
So it's detailed on the
Tax.
second page.
okay,
So
General, historic, but we know
Okay.
that we're paying a lot per hour.
Legal has gone up from,
She is very reasonable per hour when you look at the hourly of, for example, the tax attorney.
so in a couple.
I was thinking
years
more of a
ago, it was $25,000. The budget. Now we're at 144.
I
That's
don't
the
think it's that
legal
her rate is the
supervisor.
problem. I think we're probably using her
We're
times that we should.
leaning on her
We've got
far too much.
we've got-
Yes,
Robert's rules, we've got township
yes.
handbooks. I think we're probably relying on her more than we should.
Yes.
And instead of taking some ownership
okay,
of knowing things that we
Yes.
should know.
so there's two that are fixed. There's a 24 that we think might be prior year that we have to cover. There's 15 for the attorney we just talked today, to the data tax attorney. Then the other two entries are 15 for an employment attorney. Supervisor here can talk about what that is.
I don't.
No, it's like,
And then, sorry, and then there was, I think we discussed about a $7,500 per month for township attorney, which would be the firm that we're working with now, or someone like that. So if we think that's excessive, then, we can change that number,
What,
I-
7,500 a month.
7,500 a
a
month.
month for legal?
I can't remember what her rate is. She's,
That's
200.
So we're having multiple meetings.
Yeah.
Like I said, 2 years ago, or what year was this? It
I would like
was,
to. compare that.
2019, so we could, I mean, I could look even further, but it was $25,000 was budget. And that included all legal.
Okay.
You know, so now we're asking for 144. That, I know we have this one that we just talked about to do something special, so that really does need to be in there, obviously. But I think we need to have the rest of it way back.
So I did talk to the other supervisors as to what the other townships are doing. Do they have an attorney in the meeting? That was the main question, is do they have attorneys through their entire board meeting? And the consensus was 50-50. That half the town ones that don't tend to be supervised. The piece to note is the majority of the ones without attorneys in the meetings.
So I don't.
So Diane is.
It dropped for
I
20
just- I
seconds.
mean, every time it does that. like,
Our last meeting, if she bills us according to her efficient rate that she has, our bill was over $1,000.
Just for one meeting.
I'm just gonna respectfully suggest, if you look at what our legal bills have been historically, and we had issues that have popped up, yes. Have they been over 25,000? I believe there have. But the reality is, and even if you look at the previous administration, there was a learning curve, and they had counsel that was able to represent everybody. Instead of just certain portions of the township, and I believe to the craziness that we have.
I'm sorry, I cut someone off, I'm sorry.
Is my suggestion, tell you what that is. My concern is that if we keep going down this particular direction, there are certain groups of us that are not getting legal in my opinion, legal representation. And that's gonna cause additional costs to the township, and that's the last thing I want to do. I think if you, the trustees that have been here for a while. Barry, I'm sorry, I'm excluding you on this, but I think what has been occurring, and more recently what's been occurring, there seems to be a function of protracted meetings that weren't in place before. And if you think about what's causing that, you can draw your own conclusions, but I've drawn mine.
Correct.
And the resolutions and all. So if it's $50,000, they had a rate of 205, that's 243 hours. And if you're doing it, we're supposed to really only have 12 meetings, not even probably a year. And we cut down how long that takes, 243 is more than enough hours than truly is needed.
Well, because we have our annual meeting too, so that's an additional meeting.
She doesn't need to be there.
True.
I don't think she needs to be at every board meeting, I agree.
She was at the annual meeting this.
So we're saying board meetings.
Was that billed?
I don't know, yeah.
What,
Supervisor Hewitt, was she billing to be at the town hall?
She billed for, I think, the first hour because Clerk Polowitz asked her. For
I did
several
not ask her. to be there.
questions. I didn't ask her to be there either, but she billed for the first, I think, hour. Or
Okay.
for a
I didn't ask her
segment,
to
not
be
the first hour, but I think a segment. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so I guess my suggestion here is to even higher than it was, but leave it at 50,000.
for the
And
ongoing,
maybe that is stopping the resolutions. You could just vote on it. So it's not time to do resolutions.
But it is the tax attorney too.
Right.
Oh, yeah. we have
Right,
to
that's-
So that's a 15,000 too. So yes, so.
So would you
So
put
what dollar
15
is
on that and make it 65?
And there's, again, last year's payments.
yeah, we got 24 on that.
And that we've already used those services.
If the supervisor didn't ask the lawyer to be at the annual meeting, the
Right.
clerk says she did ask, yet we paid for time.
Yeah.
Doesn't somebody review that and say, I'm not paying for that? Or tell me why?
I asked her if she was gonna be there and she said yes.
No, what he's saying is, if viewing the bill saying, no, that's not what we.
Well, I had a conversation with her about about the billing of that particular meeting. And I said that the only thing that we were asking for apparently was because the clerk had asked for her to be there.
No,
That was
I
her
never
statement.
asked her to be there.
Or is it just the
We said-
budget?
I
Are you
did not-
planning
I
on
asked her if she
Yeah.
was gonna be
Let
there.
her finish. Go ahead.
It was just for over what we were being. Because of what the clerk had asked.
Well, she
That's
wasn't
what I'm
there
told.
before the meeting began, number one.
Yeah, she
And
told
number-
my wife she was, but
And yeah,
why haven't you
that's
asked, why haven't you asked the clerk whether she off vacation amongst the bills? Does she have, does John, and without letting you know, have the right to go out and incur attorney time? I mean, someone's got to coordinate that.
So if the clerk needs to ask a question with the attorney, I don't ask her the times that she requests information from the attorney, and I don't ask any of the trustees the amount of time that they're requesting with the attorney either.
It's not
And we
something that's
did
logged,
start.
no?
We
Yeah,
did
I-
start.
usually
Want
it's
that to
logged.
Start, we can start that.
Thank you. So we do get.
So what are you
itemized
saying?
bills.
We have to ask
I've never seen.
Supervisor Hill before we speak to the attorney?
No, tell her. I think that's all it
When
is.
you get a bill.
When, after the conversation, you gotta let somebody know, somebody's gotta review the bill,
Hmm,
right? Because otherwise, I'm just gonna put in there, I thought, 8 hours. this time.
Wow. I think she's honorable and honest, so I think you're right, we should have a look back, no question. So so legal costs was 24,000 because we think 12 is for last year, and I think we were putting aside 12 in case the prior term comes, he hasn't, so maybe.
The bill came after, so we owe for this year, so it's gonna keep going that way. So meaning that the following year, it'll be on the next budget item, budget. We should not be paying backwards. And in fact, we asked her, I think Lisa's on there, we asked her for her bills for that year.
I think, sorry, I think the board questioned it, though, and didn't pay it. So I think the board deferred payment of that from the last year, so.
Well, there was a discrepancy and she was gonna check with her office to see if
Right.
there had been a crossover of a
Right.
payment based on the balance.
Right.
So was that reconciled?
Yes,
And what was the outcome?
I think that there was an overlap in time when our meeting was on a later date and the bill had come after the meeting. So if I recall that.
I'm gonna just say it one more time. Her bill did not arrive here for whenever it was for. Her bill did not arrive here till this year, this budget year. So it's this budget,
So it has to come off, then how do we,
which means that, well, I don't know. I think the budget should be the budget and then it's the following year. for the
I'm not disagreeing, but my point is then we have to factor that dollar amount into the amount that that.
I don't think
revenue
it's
for-
extra because I think that's her billing cycle. Because she doesn't bill till, we won't see this bill till like 2 months later for this month.
Right, but if we're looking at an annual spend and we're looking at reducing that, we're looking to reduce it, but we still have a balance from the work that was done the previous budget, right? And we have to take that, into consideration with the number, that's what I'm saying, right?
Right.
So if we're paying it this year on this budget. But we want to drop this budget, we have to factor in that we've got that balance to pay.
But then what happens next? The balance of what's gonna happen this year goes next year, so it's a wash.
Well, but except she's not gonna be billing nearly as much per month as she
No,
does.
she's not, but it'll still be later.
A little
I see
bit.
what you're saying.
I'll stop. You can
No, I,
stop.
No, it's okay.
no, I see what you're saying. So how do we,
Well, we had 144,000. I just did some quick math. So let's say it's 12,000 for what we owed previous year. 15 for the tax attorney. We talked about that. We've got the employment attorney, maybe that's 10, 15. And then why don't we say budget 4,000 a month for that? And that's 48,000. So that gets us to, sorry, I only put 5,000 for the employment attorney. That gets us to 20, I think it gets us to 80,000. So that brings it down by 60,000, 64,000.
Are we comfortable? 80,000?
Attorney Ed Mullen never billed us. We've been asking for months for his bill. So there's that outstanding piece.
I don't think we're gonna get a bill from him, are we?
Honestly,
And at this point, I don't even think he could,
how do we pay that bill? We
Right.
can, I'm personally not going back through old meetings and making sure that we know what's what, like, nope.
and half the time he wasn't even on the call. He was there, but he wasn't. You'd ask questions and he was like, what? Like,
Well, it seemed like it was the trouble.
wasn't this a
to-
volunteer thing he was doing? In some way, was this like a volunteer
I
job?
think you deal with it when it comes, but I don't think you budget
Yeah.
for it.
I think it was more trouble
It's
for him
long
to draw the
ago.
bill.
He has another township, but he
Yeah.
can't council.
Neighborville, Wheatland. Right?
Wait a minute, he's never been.
Yeah, he doesn't build it. So I guess we should,
So if we reduce that by 80. We're now at what?
No, sorry, reduce it by 64,
By
bring it down
Oh, 60,
to 80.
280.
Well,
Do you have some inside information we don't have as far as expecting a bill from Attorney Mullen?
Been asking for it. No, I don't. If
Oh,
you
okay.
Wanted to.
I wouldn't ask anymore.
Yeah,
That's it.
but-
He's been asked, he didn't provide one, that's it, it's over. So,
So we're
Budget's
409 right now. We cut for
I got to 419.
419.
I think so, it's 119, I think, yeah. And then there was 20K software, the case management software.
The other one is salaries, you know, we spent 372.9. The budget is 510, but we're adding another 100,000.
yeah, where's that coming from?
Well, that's based, I think that's based on current employee run rate. I don't think,
Even at 4%,
that's for new, that's current run rate of employees that are here right now, is my understanding of the number. I can go back and validate that, or we can look at it together.
well, we went from 1 year, 372, so we're saying 373 to 510, and now we're jumping another 100,000.
It's 1640.
And maybe that's more for the next meeting, because if you break
Okay.
down everybody who's
Okay,
working,
so
then you could have that answer.
And that affects a lot of the employment costs too, because there's a percentage there. It's at least 15% on top of that, right?
right, with the perks,
Retirement.
right, yep.
Well, retirement and insurance.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so that's an open question.
And then the transportation pace.
Well, that was an estimate. Operations Manager Wolf, do you want to talk about what you think pace is going to look like this year?
Well, based on what we paid last year, we're gonna be paying, I would probably say at least 30% less than what we had to pay for them for the Ride and Page program. Only because the ridership will not be there, and the way they billed us was based on ridership. So that's what that number is. And also in that is our transit software that everyone knows about Ecolane, we have that. And then the van expenses, which includes just the rental of vans and I think all our fuel and maintenance expenses are involved in that.
And testing? Sorry,
Oh, and then there's those us employees, I have to include myself, us employees who are safety sensitive employees are required to take at least one drug test every quarter, depending on how the random pool goes. It's a random drug test, and nobody knows when it's coming. It could come or it could not come, but with our pool being such a small number of people, I expect that we'll get our full allotment of tests, and those are in there as well.
sorry, but you said, so we spent 47,000 with pace last year. I know you're concerned about the sick, how often they bill and all those sorts of things.
Yeah,
But you think that number is gonna be less, the 47,000 is gonna be less.
I think it will be less.
So it's $100,000 for us. Bus maintenance, testing, gas. And the cost of them. Cost of the buses themselves.
Well, you've got driver training, because PACE offers training classes for drivers, so they're gonna have to be trained on that. There are things that like the pullouts books that you have to have for the pre-trip books, and the PACE requires us to do maintenance that is preventative maintenance, and we incur that cost as well. So yeah, all of that is in there.
I think in the training probably goes into the 25,000,
There's other places for training, you're right.
right?
What do you think?
I don't think we should touch the training because we do want, our staff to grow and thrive and to be on, you know, a performance development plan, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a big fund.
So, sorry, what's your thought?
Um. Yeah, I don't know if I would,
So while you're thinking about training
that's such a small.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not,
I don't think we're talking about training.
Who's
I think
pace?
we're talking about the
so
transportation.
you think 140, or do you think it could be less than that?
The buses are new and gas is cheaper.
Well, gas certainly isn't cheaper.
No,
And the buses are 2019 buses.
well, we're leasing these
Or
buses, so
higher.
we don't have to maintain them if they, I mean. Right, we're leasing them, so that should not be,
Right, for the first year, they are paying any major. They are covering any major breakdowns or whatever.
It's reduced.
But the general maintenance, we are responsible for, that includes tires, brakes.
Oil
just
change.
the Oil changes, bus washes, just the cleaning of the buses rattle, shake, rattle, and roll, so screws get loose and you drop them off, they fall out. We gotta put them back.
so what is that? So like if we're looking at an oil change a month, for example, or every other month, right? We do an oil change, right? For 2 vehicles, so, and then tires. What do you think?
Well,
Annual?
tires are generally about $600 each if you do it, but.
But how frequently are replacing tires?
Well,
Once
Just
a
don't
year?
know, because you could run over a nail, just hit a curve or whatever, you have to get a new tire.
I'm
But-
trying to
but-
go with a
but
dollar.
overall-
Yeah.
overall, generally, tires go between 60 and 80,000 miles, depending on the loads that you carry.
So I guess we're kind of come to like what a realistic expense would be maintaining a bus. And my guess is that Pace should have been able to provide that since they have been maintaining the buses.
Well,
So if we
true.
had one breakdown, that was like, I mean, the last. In our, the food pantry van, we had the one bus that you all saw that we paid was $1,200, and that was a low one.
But that was a
It
major
really
breakdown, which
depends
is
on
supposed
what
to be
it is.
covered by Pace. We're talking about regular maintenance, oil change, tires.
Well, a lot of that, those things, well, the tires don't cover, it's not covered in the.
We're
in
talking
the
about regular
PM,
maintenance.
But the PMs generally cost, around about. I would probably estimate about $200 each PM, and you get a PM after every 3,000 miles. That includes the oil changes, the fluids and everything.
So when
Anything
you do the
extra-
math of that, like, so let's say that's once a month for 2 vehicles, where are we at?
I had it down at 2,200 for maintenance.
Okay. Is that
and then how
reasonable?
much was the Echo Lane? We just paid that 14,000.
About 20K, I think.
Was it? Okay. That's, I mean,
Or sorry, I had it down for 9,000. For bus maintenance, non-mechanical.
okay, 9,000. So
For
that's
2 buses, not one.
So could you bump it?
Well, the
up to
software is only a
zero?
one-time purchase, right? We're not
Right.
paying 20,000 next year.
No,
So that's just this year.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a
we just
one-time
thought-
purchase and then
Right.
year over year, it's like, I think it's $3,600.
Yeah,
we,
but we've talked about looking 4 years out too, so. Yeah, I thought that was,
So what if you do 50? Is that crazy? Because I mean, you did 47 last year. You think it's gonna be less this year, but there's going to be maintenance on it, which,
Hold on.
We didn't
What
have
did
the
we do
buses
last
last
year?
year.
We didn't do
These are
anything
small
last year.
vans.
We didn't even have those.
no, the
buses.
small vans we have for the food pantry.
so this is for the pace and transportation. And you, that.
Oh, but that's for people using the bus services. That's not including the tuna bus services. That's just our pace services, right? For the township, for the,
So-
right?
That was
Right.
why I paid
Okay,
to-
So
okay.
this is above.
So you felt that $47,000 will be less this year, right? For pace. And then, so then we add on what the thought is for the new bus service.
Okay.
So we just, and then 9,000 you figured for maintenance.
Here's the other thing that happened last year. We got a random check for $19,000 from 2 years prior. And it came in last year, meaning that sometimes Pace will literally, we've been talking about a bill 2 years ago that we've renegotiated 3 times. It's a very odd way of billing, and they will, right now, we're 6 months behind and them us receiving a bill.
Okay.
So they usually bill us 3 months in the arrears. And so we're really, 47,000 was really low in a certain way. It was already low because we had the 19,000 and the fact that we're 6 months behind and them even giving us a bill. So some of this has to be understood that it's a very odd way to bill. We don't have much control over it, and we need to have it.
And we did talk about, we thought year 1 of the transit program was gonna be about $300,000. We talked about that when we approved the software, so. This is showing here. Plus
Mary,
the
is there
salaries.
any kind of like, where we're looking at like percentages of how the budget should be heavy, because, based on what we're looking at, like. Payroll and benefits are pretty significant versus the levy.
Yeah, it's like 80%.
So what,
Sorry, I do not have that metric. I wish I did. And I think we do have to try to collect that and see how we rank up against other townships.
yeah, it's like, I don't know, like. Our operating expenses shouldn't be more than a certain percentage, like, I don't know, is there a best practice for this?
Here's 2 things that we're also not yet really incorporating. And the 2 things that are not yet really even being factored fully in is trying to make money. We're now trying to make money with passports. And that's going to be growing. There's other aspects of ways that we can actually make money built in. And the other piece is we, from a grant perspective, when you look at some other townships, they have 15 to 20% of their income coming from grants. We haven't built up the ability to do that. So is there a potential, for example, with some of our transportation system to get grants because of the transportation system or because of the senior services that we're now offering? Can we then write a grant for some of these options that we didn't have because we didn't have the options? It's even something to write off.
So in the interest of where we're at, and we still have another meeting, is there a way for us to sit with where we're at and everybody, based on the conversation we've had, really, like, let's dig in deeper and come back with a recommendation, since this is still just a draft, instead of putting more time into this evening?
I would concur.
Okay.
We do have to have, so. The board has asked that we have documents ready, 48 hours minimum before meeting, right? In our meetings on Tuesday. So, are you excused from that? I'm trying to remember. You're not, I can't remember if you're gonna be able to make that one or not. On Tuesday.
Is it
right?
at 7 PM?
I'll be there Tuesday.
Yeah, I was looking.
It's at 7 PM, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you might have been out of town. Anyways, yes, I agree. So I will work with the folks. I'll do what we talked about here. With the changes we talked about, ask Supervisor Hewitt, Operations Manager Wolf, where we think there's other savings. And have something by end of day, no later than, I'll try to do it, no later than, let's say.
Is that the 23rd?
Yes.
Yeah. No later than end of day Monday.
Yes, I do have something.
I have something the
Yes.
23rd.
Yeah, graduation.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
You have a conflict
I
as
have
well?
something on this.
So
Let me,
Have an updated plan. Budget.
I'd rather, if we can have.
I remember you had.
The 23rd.
All right, any other discussion on this?
Make a motion to,
I'll second.
do I need to add though in that time, just have like a cleaner breakout of, or,
We need to have it before the next board meeting, which is on the 23rd.
right, I'll
So
put a cleaner break out so that we can,
you would like, sorry, on some of the budget line items,
on the bigger ones.
do you want to send me a list of what you would like a better
I
breakdown?
mean, sure.
Okay,
And we're tabling this to,
well,
Why don't we discuss what we want broken down a little bit better?
Fine.
Before we.
Okay.
So
what,
we don't have you scrambling
yeah,
or.
please,
Okay.
please, if you can call them up now.
Salaries.
so we are not tabling.
What line item is it?
8.
Salaries is 10-1640.
Do you want us just to email them to you?
No, we're making notes now, making notes now. The one you'd mentioned before,
Website expenses too, goes from 4 to 15,
I think that was a plan to develop a new website.
a
So-
new,
or
Another one?
a refreshed.
We
So,
just redid the
yeah,
website.
I think
Yeah.
we can scratch that now.
okay, take it down to 4, same as, what was last
Yeah,
year?
I think our website's pretty good.
Once the website's up, it shouldn't require,
Okay,
Taking it down to
I think
4.
it's
no, I don't.
such an
think it's
improvement, I
warranty
think
because
that's,
We're not rebuilding it.
Well, there are-
Because it had to be rebuilt.
I'm not sure what the 2661 was, is that just ongoing, someone maintaining it? Oh, let me get clarification on that.
okay, thank you. So website expenses.
Are we, you want more of the breakdown of the base transportation, are you good with that?
Yeah, I wanna understand, like. If we're reducing our costs in some ways, but we're increasing, I would like to see how we're
Okay.
factoring that. And then, oh gosh, it's just appeared. I know we touched on this, but why did telephone double?
That was supposed to
Because
go down.
we're getting flip phones, we had to get enough flip phones for the drivers. To be able to do it, and then we also needed more telephones because there's more staff.
Flip
So the-
phone.
They're more expensive than
The
regular
drivers,
Push to talk to.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, what,
Oh,
There's also the tablets that they have to have, where they run the software, and where they get their.
right, but a tablet is,
The one-time expense, you're right. But well, there's the service though, service.
yeah.
okay, all right, and then.
Oh, you know, what, there's another training over here.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, thank you.
You had asked before about travel meetings and dues.
Yeah,
Did you want to break down on that?
Yeah.
Trustee
Yeah.
Geist, 16,240.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
youth and family too. I mean, it's not something that I want to cut, but I'm just curious where the 100 goes to 5,000.
The idea was to have, I think. Whether it was their wanting to have like. A planned school fair event, saving up I think it was like 2 months of trying to have a school drive. And
For what?
there's a few other pieces, but
A school drive for what?
for school supplies.
Don't you feel like there's so many other agencies
Yeah,
already
schools
so
have-
active at doing that? Again. We should be working with other agencies. I think that this is another
Right.
opportunity to collaborate.
I'm sure that was part of the plan, because we know that the county does one, we wanted to make sure that there was. Something close by.
and just to note, there's van maintenance. What's flying up,
That's that's the little van.
the other vans?
That's for the
And I
pantry.
guess for the-
And then also very 16/10/16/24 travel meetings dues, the tripling of that.
got that one already.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, please.
I have so many dots here, sorry.
I don't know that we need to table this. What we're looking for was a resolution, a recommendation to approve a budget in a certain form, and we're not at that point right
We don't
now.
have to do anything. Perfect,
I believe not.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more discussion item, possible action regarding a resolution of elected officials and historic payroll issues, primarily the assessor and the supervisor. My notes are that Attorney Wysocki forwarded information developed by Accountant Nader to the board members on the 3rd, the 8th, and again on the 10th. I think we've been a lot of information sharing going on. And then I think Accountant Nader sent emails with information on a recommended resolution, the assessor, the supervisor payroll issues on May 11th. I really just want to help everyone get to closure on this. So what I would like to suggest is if anyone has any concerns with the proposed solutions, including the financial recommendations, please provide them to Accountant Nader by end of day Friday. I would like to recommend that the board be in a position to approve the final solutions according to whatever Accountant Nader has put together with consultation with other people, and that we try to resolve it at the next board meeting. I think that's all I'm asking. So
Can I get a copy of those emails?
Yeah.
I think you were all copied.
Say it again, then, which ones?
I
it was.
checked today. There was one on the third, the series on the
Third.
3rd, 8th, 10th, and then Accountant
The
Nader.
10th
You
is-
might, I'm sorry, I think she sent it to all,
I'll check, but
yeah, I'll make sure you get
What
them.
was it
Third,
about?
8th and the 10th and 11th.
Yes, and the 3rd, 8th, and 10th were from the attorney, and then I believe that Accountant Nader sent a series on the 11th.
The 11th, that would be the.
And they included spreadsheets of how she calculated it. Okay.
And
I
spreadsheets,
don't recall seeing.
I thought a spreadsheet.
I didn't see a spreadsheet.
It was a breakdown.
It was a
I'm
breakdown, it just, it was PDF.
Sure, there was one that had a
Well, you
spreadsheet.
can copy
You
paste
got
from a
it?
spreadsheet and put it in a
No,
PDF. and
I
it's
don't
still-
have access to my
Email?
township email from my phone anymore.
This was the overpay. This was the.
Right,
car allowance.
right, in the car allowance is my understanding.
Did Supervisor, you would agree with her final calculation?
I was frankly looking for a spreadsheet, I had some other.
Well, you have a spreadsheet that you developed yourself that agreed to her final numbers that she emailed.
I mean, it's semantics, a spreadsheet, if you copy paste from a spreadsheet and just put it in a document, it's still the layout of the grid. I mean, I
Well-
think we're getting hung up on, do you need the lines?
No, I don't think it's.
I'm talking about Supervisor Hewitt, because she's like, it wasn't in a spreadsheet. If you copy paste it from an Excel spreadsheet, it can be right into a document without the lines.
The one I saw had X number of payrolls or paychecks at such a rate, and it didn't list all of the paychecks.
Can I make sure that we get all the information and that we work as a team to
Yes.
resolve this by next board meeting? Thank you. That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Item 9, elected officials, any comments?
No comment.
Thank you.
I would hope that we think about the long term, in the lack of investment in the past. And if we wanna have more services, then I think we really need to figure out how we do that in the long term. wise.
Thank you. All right. Motion. Adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
Supervisor Hewitt,
Yes.
trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Trustee Page, I'm a yes. Trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Geist
Yes.
and operations